Joking, of course it alternates. Tony Flipiak.
Hey all, this is Tony Flipiak with State OIT, the GIS team there, and then we have a couple others from the same team on this call. I guess we can do introductions, get through the introductions, but I did want to just kind of offer some of the data collection, data aggregation perspective from the state side once we wrap up intros.
Yep, and I have that on my to-do list as well to get to ask that question today as to what resources the state might be able to provide us. Someone named Doug.
Hi, this is Doug Genzer. I'm a GIS data administrator with the City and County of Denver. I work for the IT department and technology services, and we manage the address and street center line data for the city. We're not the addressing authority. That's in Public Works, which is now called Department of Infrastructure and Transportation. And then we manage the street layer, which we work with Public Works and various other city agencies to maintain, and then supply that data to our 911 authority.
Great. Joe Benkert.
Kurt, I'm counsel for BRETSA, the Boulder 911 Authority.
Kyle Stevens.
Hi, I'm Kyle Stevens. I'm in the Governor's Office of Information Technology GIS team with Tony Flipiak and Laura. I'm still on the call.
Lara Duran.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura, and I am also with the OIT group, the GIS organization working for the Governor's Office, State of Colorado. I work with Tony and Kyle.
Matt Gage.
Matt Gage here. I'm the executive director for the Montrose Emergency Telephone Service Authority. Included in my duties are 911 and GIS data management for the authority and the PSAP.
Patty West.
Yeah, I am retired public safety after 35 years. I was a sergeant and spent the last 8 years as a 911 director. And I am representing BRETSA.
Rachel introduced herself by the chat window. If you want to add something, Rachel.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. I work for Boulder County Sheriff's Office, where I'm a 911 specialist. I do GIS research and data prep, MSEG edits as well. And I've been here about a year, but before that I worked in the assessor's office for 17 years at Boulder County. So I've been thinking a lot about parcels and addresses, sub-addresses, and some of the issues that Matt was talking about, the national standards. Patty and I have started exploring those together for BRETSA. That's all I'll say for now.
Thank you. Robert Horn.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Robert Hornham with Mission Critical Partners. I'm the GIS SME and supporting several of the states that surround you. So I'm just here as a resource.
Thank you, Robert. Shelley Lesnansky.
Hi, I'm Shelley Lesnansky. I'm with Denver 911. I'm the manager there and work with the internal technology team and Doug Genzer for the streets file for CAD, MSEG, and all those things, and just here to see how this progresses. Thank you.
Thank you. And is it Stason or Stacy?
I go by Stacy. Full name is Stason. Okay. So Stacy Gross with Geocom. I'm the territory manager. I oversee our company's activities in the 28 states that I cover, and we've done a fair amount of this. So I'm available and hoping to provide any comments and thoughts on what other folks are doing, what's worked, what's not worked. So I'm based in the Omaha, Nebraska area, so I'm not terribly geographically far from you guys, but yeah, thank you.
Gotcha. Trip McLaughlin.
Hi, I'm Trip McLaughlin with Northline GIS. We manage dispatch data for several counties in Colorado, so just kind of here to listen and learn.
Great, thank you. Vicki Pickett. You don't have any audio?
You're on mute.
I can introduce you for you. Vicky is she's an operations manager for JEFCOM, which is Jefferson County's combined 911 center. And she's also the chair of the 911 Advisory Task Force. Is that good enough, Vicky? Okay. I've joked with Holly, my coworker Holly, who's the TRS administrator and speaks very fluent American Sign Language, that with all the people on mute problems we have, we all just need to learn sign language and communicate that way on these calls. Anybody on the phone only that I haven't called so far? Okay, well, there's also myself. I'm the State 911 Program Manager for the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. And I help facilitate the meetings of the 911 Advisory Task Force. And somebody else just joined. That might have been somebody who's already on the call, though. If you just joined and you haven't introduced yourself, please do. Okay. So I think we've identified a lot of good questions, and just to kind of follow up on one of them, I think, Matt, it was you who asked, if a subcontractor to the BESP is going to end up doing our geospatial routing, what all does that entail? Does that mean we have to get the information together for them and aggregate it and give it to them as a completed product so that they can use it for routing, or will they be doing the aggregating and putting it into the full statewide data sets that they need for routing, which depending on the answer to that question, I think greatly impacts how much work we have to do on our end.
Absolutely.
So, one of my items was, what should we talk about for future meetings? And I think, identifying the tasks to be completed. I think, getting an idea first as to what CenturyLink and Intrado's intentions are for moving forward might help us identify some of those. We have a new person joining, Lauren. Where'd it go? There it is. Lauren DiGiovanni, welcome. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Probably taking you a second to get off mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
A bit of an echo. If you're on both the phone and the computer, you're all the way down on your computer.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. This is Lauren DiGiovanni. I'm with JEFCOM 911, so I work with Vicky. Our territory basically covers Jefferson County and a little bit into Park County and some parts of Douglas County.
Okay, thank you. And we talked, and Tony kind of touched on it a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to talk about today was to what extent OIT can help us. What kind of materials do they already have? So Tony, do you want to take that and kind of talk about what you kind of envision the state's role in this being, or potentially being?
Yeah, so basically what we currently do is annual data calls out to counties. Currently, we have a main focus on address and parcel data. We aggregate that data to build a statewide data set. So that's kind of what we've been doing for a couple years now. I think historically, we may have tried getting some other data, such as PSAP boundaries, that sort of thing. I want to say maybe Nathan Lowry, if any of you know him, back in the day was working on that, but we haven't really done much of that in the past few years here. Again, focusing mainly on the addresses and parcels, but I guess, yeah, I just wanted to point out that we do already reach out to counties annually for data calls. So if there are potentially other data sets we're looking for, I think we'd be happy to incorporate that into our data calls. And one thing that was mentioned a little earlier on the call is there are some challenges with counties where we have come across some counties that just don't have GIS capabilities or don't have that data developed yet. So that's one thing that may be an obstacle. And then also different data sharing capabilities. Some counties choose to share their data more openly than others. So I think that's just another thing to keep in mind as we kind of figure out next steps and how involved that might be.
And I think the ironic thing is, I think PSAP boundary layers will be one of the easiest things because I know Intrado already has that developed. It may be a matter of getting it from them if we need it on our side of it.
And you seeing them. If anybody's looked at the new NEAT GIS-based EPRC, the PSAP boundaries in there are a disaster.
Yeah, can't use that.
What they were smoking when they came up with the boundaries for our area. We just did a big project to update 5 PSAP boundaries.
Yeah, there were PSAPs in NINA's EPRC that haven't existed in years. They've been gone for over a decade.
Yeah, we deleted 3 too. Yeah.
Daryl, I have a question for the state. Maybe this is premature. I'm assuming we're going to need to have some repository for this data. Is the state willing to do that? I don't know where else that would occur.
It's definitely something that we can talk about. I think if we are able to offer that up, we would love to. I will have to circle back with John Gottsagen, who's the state GIS director, to see what his thoughts are on that. So I think that's a good question and something to have on my radar, and I can report back on basically how capable we are of providing something like that.
I actually asked John that question a couple of years ago, and his answer at the time was yes, the state could potentially fill that role. But of course, that was a couple of years ago, so I wouldn't hold him to it now. We'd have to ask him. But
and the aggregator.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Dan.
Sorry, Daryl. The aggregator may plan to be that repository as well for distribution to LISs at the carrier.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Matt. It kind of depends on what role the BESP subcontractor is going to be. If it's Intrado, which I assume it would be, does Intrado want to be the person putting it together, or do we need to put it together and give it to them in an aggregated form? And if we need to put it together and hand it to them as a completed data set, then we'll need some place to store that data. And I think the state could make sense to use the state's resources to do that.
Daryl?
Yes.
Joe Benkert with representing Bretza. GIS isn't a part of the tariff. And so I don't think if Intrado and CenturyLink wanted to do it, I don't think we would have to use them. I would think other providers could also provide the data and supply the data set needed for Intrado, CenturyLink's operations, routing features, and things. And so I think I don't think it's an either or, their choice. I think it's our choice. And I think where we need to start is looking at process. Now, I don't know enough about GIS data, but I know we ought to be looking at the process of how do we get from where we are to where we have a provider and we're ready to find some way to fund it.
I agree with that, Joe. I think we don't necessarily have to purchase a service from Intrado to be the aggregator, even if they offer it. But I think knowing whether or not that is even on the table is kind of an important question to answer before we know how to move forward. Before we can even make the decision, we have to know what decision's available to us.
My thought is that there are a number of vendors out there now, and they would be one of them, and we would have to, eventually go through an RFP process. And I don't know if we start with an RFQ or we don't need to, because as Matt was saying, there's enough definition out there of data sets. And another option would be, since there are some optional data sets, it sounds like that some authorities may want and others may not. Do we include that work, but have it built out separately to PSAPs that separate that?
Okay.
To my maybe RFQ, that kind of a decision, and then RFP process.
Joe, I think those are valid points, but I would also submit that I don't think CenturyLink's going to add geospatial to our current EZNet service, for example, without revising the tariff and collecting more money to pay for geospatial routing. So it'll be curious to see what comes out of that process.
Right, they're going to have to revise the tariff to provide geospatial routing. I think the question is, what all does that include? What does that include? The aggregation? Are we going to pay them for the aggregation, or do you think we as a statewide 911 community can do better by using another provider? And if we can, how do we pay for it on a statewide level, considering we have no statewide funds to pay for it from?
That tariff revision will be a negotiation, as was the initial tariff.
Right.
And so we kind of want to have our information and knowledge when we go into negotiating that tariff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to the funding issue, because I know there are a lot of people on this call that are GIS specialists, haven't really spent a lot of time in the 911 world. This may be your first introduction to statewide 911 issues in Colorado. I kind of wanted to talk about that for a little bit. For the 911 people on the call, this is going to be just a primer, because you already know this stuff. But Colorado does not have a statewide 911 fund like a lot of states do. We just passed a bill to create a statewide 911 surcharge, but that the funds from that surcharge will then be. Doug, we're getting a little bit of echo on yours, so I'm going to mute you. If you need to talk later, go ahead and unmute yourself. The funds, the revenues from that statewide 911 surcharge are going to be remitted directly back to the local 911 authorities. So how we pay for 911 in Colorado is we have a tariff, which is just a price list in terms of conditions that is approved by the Public Utilities Commission. And then the local 911 authorities pay for their 911 service from CenturyLink based off of that price list that's in the tariff. And the pricing mechanism in there is based on how many 911 calls a 911 center can take at a time, otherwise referred to in the tariff as a concurrent session. So if the tariff is modified to provide geospatial routing as part of the service, then what will likely happen is that that cost will have to go up the price per concurrent session in the tariff, and hopefully be offset by that new statewide 911 surcharge that we have just implemented, which will be distributed back to the local 911 authorities based on how many concurrent sessions the 911 authority has in its PSAPs. So I know that's probably clear as mud, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. But essentially what it means is we don't have a way to do a statewide RFP for a single GIS contractor, because we have no way to do a contract statewide for a single GIS contractor. Another possibility is a consortium of local 911 authorities might come together and issue an RFP. That's something that I know has been discussed in the past. But then how do you make that statewide and not have any holes in the end result? Because we don't want to have, 60, or let's say 50 of our 64 counties now have NG 911 quality GIS data, but the other 14 chose not to participate. We don't want to end up with a situation like that. So those are some of the challenges that we have specific to Colorado, simply because of really how it all comes down to the amendment in our Constitution that really restricts what the state can spend money on and what it can't.
I have a couple ideas there. One is we could do future legislation to broaden what the statewide surcharge could be used for. But the other thing is essentially could contract with in the tariff, there'll be a rate element for geospatial routing. There's also the need for development and maintenance of the data that's based on. And CenturyLink could contract with another provider and include those charges in its tariff. It would probably mark them up, I'm sure, to some extent for it's still cost-based, but for their administration of it. And that might be a way that we could do it.
Right. And Joe just mentioned an important point too, that because it's a tariff model and not a contract model, we don't go out to bid to get our 911 service in Colorado. It is regulated and has to be cost-based. So CenturyLink's current current tariff is based on their cost plus a 10.5% profit margin.
Yeah, after
for example,
18 months of
discussion.
Yes.
Matt. We don't go
Sorry,
behind
Joe.
the curtain and look at Intrado's costs.
And I'm sorry, I missed these chat messages. So Laura said, we've also done a preliminary crosswalk comparison between the address and parcel data with NG 911 requirements. And Doug just said, I think we need to know the magnitude of the data management task, possibly a survey to each PSAP to know the completeness of their data products and missing data and compliance with the NG 911 schemas. I wonder if this is where OIT can really help us with this, because they already do this annual data call. I don't know how much of the data you're already receiving from the locals could be translated into here's what we have, or here's what the locals have in terms of the data sets that we already know that we're going to need for NG 911.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that we can definitely help out with. I've actually just done something fairly similar for a different project where OIT is kind of serving the role of helping coordinate data, and some of you from counties may have even gotten this email from me, but I put out a survey basically asking what data they did have available, what data they're willing to share. So perhaps something similar to that would be a good start, just to sort of as an inventory, see what's out there, see what's available.
Okay. And when do you do your annual call for data?
We do it in January of each year, and then we usually allow for 3, even 4 months to let the data come in. And for our address and parcel data sets, we are in the process of kind of aggregating all of that and republishing it back out as a statewide data set. So we do start in the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, for something like this, as I see it as almost a specialized data call, I think that's something that we can put out there anytime.
Lauren has a great comment in the chats.
So Lauren says she agrees with Doug. Also, especially noting existence of a data set does not equate to completeness of the data set. That's true.
And quality, yeah.
And Patty asked if the state reaches out to counties to do their or do they reach out to the PSAPs? And my understanding is you reach out to the county GIS departments. Is that right, Tony? Or whoever your GIS contact is for each county?
Yeah, we reach out to.
I think we lost you there, Tony. You're cutting in and out. Leave it to the IT people to have to work connection. But anyway,
he's commenting in the chat.
Oh yeah, we reach out to the counties. And as far as and Tony's comment that they could do a special data request, realistically, we might not be able to even get our data request together before January. If we're researching all of our options before doing our data call, which I would suggest we do, so making sure we're asking for the right data. But maybe we can get it together faster than that. Well, those are kind of the things that I had on my list to talk about today. Is there anything else that you think we should talk about in this first meeting, or is this good for an introduction? And then we'll hear from Intrado at the task force meeting in July, and then maybe regroup after that.
This is Lara from OIT. What is the deadline or the ultimate end product that you're looking to get in terms of time frame?
Well, I think that's actually that's another good topic that I should have put on my list. I don't know that we really have a specific time frame. Right now, the ESI net is being installed, and it will not be completed until at least March of 2021. There's a very good chance that we'll have some additional slippage there, and it might actually be later than March of 2021. So I don't think we will be looking to really move forward with anything, especially a change to the tariff, until after that date. But there's not really, nobody's really set an end date. As we want to have geospatial routing by May of 2022, for example, or May of 2023. Nobody's come up with that date yet, and maybe that's something that this group can think about and come back and say, we want to set as a goal this date just to keep us on track and moving forward. Does anybody else have any other thoughts about that? And I think part of that will be decided, do we need, by the other decisions we need to make, such as, do we need to issue an RFP? If we need to do that, then we know how many months that generally takes to put the RFP together, to get it out there, to get responses, to evaluate the responses. Is it going to take a change to the tariff, which it probably will, at least for part of it? And we know that is kind of out of our hands. It's somewhat up to the commissioner or the administrative law judge who will be in charge of that tariff modification process as to how long that will take, as well as the parties that are involved in the discussions. Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, it's something I've been pondering, and Rachel sort of touched on it in the comments, is the ongoing maintenance. In this model, the 911 authorities are responsible for the provision of the data, like they are for the MSEG today, shall we say. But it may not be them that actually does the providing. The factor in this is going to be education, I think, on some levels, that this isn't a one-time deal. This is going to require constant, ongoing updates and maintenance of data.
Right. So I'd be really interested to hear what they're doing for Arizona. And on a kind of a side topic, I know the relationship between CenturyLink and the Arizona 911 agency has not always been a very happy relationship. But it'll be interesting to hear what Intrado and CenturyLink are planning to do for them.
Another issue on timing would be, as far as local funding, or if we try for additional state funding, even for getting the initial database set, is going to be the effect of the coronavirus on revenues. And so it may be some time before we can even look towards that.
I think you're right. I think any ask for additional funding at this point is a tall order. And I did mention that we did get 1293 passed from the legislature, but it's still at the governor's office. And I understand that one of the major cellular carriers are putting pressure on the governor to veto it. So I don't even know for a fact that we're going to have that. We'll see what happens.
Hey, this is Vicki. I guess I just wanted to kind of pipe in about the time frame. Although I think it's really healthy and a good thing to have a goal. I feel like this is such a daunting task that maybe one of the first things is really assessing where we're at, then starting to determine what that goal end date, because it's all well and good to put a goal out there, but if it's completely unrealistic and we're not really analyzing what we've got, then there's no point in doing that. But I feel like that might be the first part, and you can do that without getting any funding, right? You can get a good assessment of where we're at as a starting point. before we figure out a date.
I agree with that, Vicky. I think we need to get our arms around the issue first.
Yep.
And, you know, not being a GIS person, I don't know how big of a task that is. I imagine it's a very big task, but I can't say that for sure. Which brings me to the last.
Folks.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, this is Matt. I know that some 911 authorities and local government GIS departments have been preparing for this for a long time. And there's, might ask us what it is when we broach the subject with them. I think we're going to have a wide variety of preparedness that will also affect our timing, if you will.
And this is Robert. I'd like to expand on that just a little bit. The average right now is around 18 months to get GIS data into the next gen core services. Obviously, it's going to be longer if you have jurisdictions that have to start from scratch. But I would recommend when you do your data call and analyze that data, if you have a jurisdiction or two that are very close or even ready, that you pilot your database and interaction with Intrado and the process for getting it into the next gen core services, because we are running into problems with every next gen core services provider as we're looking at these state implementations across the country and working those out with one or two pilot jurisdictions so that the rest of your jurisdictions have an easier transition. Makes you look a lot better from a state level, that you have your ducks in a row and have worked these out. And it also makes it a lot less stressful for the locals.
There's a couple of regional groups in the state that are doing data aggregation already for a variety of purposes. Here with about 6 counties, I think Dr. Cog, Dr. Cog, however you pronounce it, there might be another. Vicky, maybe you know of the third. But we have some, there you go, Doug. So we have some groups that might be capable of providing a integrated data for a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, for sure.
Well, we got about 10 minutes left, and the last thing I wanted to do today, I think, is probably the most important, because I don't believe I'm the right person to lead this group going forward. I think someone who knows 911 as well as GIS would be a really good choice. So I would entertain nominations for chair. I'm going to start by nominating Matt Gage.
Second.
Matt's been involved in the 911 Advisory Task Force for a very long time and knows a whole lot about GIS, more about GIS than I will ever know. So I think he would be a good choice, but I would entertain other nominations as well. Going.
I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a train. I'm about to get railroaded.
Matt, do you accept the nomination? I should have asked that first.
If no one else wants it, I'll do it.
Going. Gage.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I think
I will help with scheduling the meetings. I'll run the webcast. So all you have to focus on is the actual agendas and helping to guide us toward useful discussions.
Daryl
That's
will
great.
help a lot.
yeah, I'm going to depend on that, because I'm in the middle of trying to figure out next year's budget amongst all this financial going on.
And I'm sure that's not a fun thing right now with revenue.
It's not. No.
Well, guys, I think this was a very productive first meeting. We didn't get a lot settled, but I didn't really expect us to get anything settled, because this was mainly just to survey the possible range of topics that we need to address at future meetings. If you are able to, I would encourage you to attend the July task force meeting. It is virtual. If you go to the task force webpage, the link will be there. We also record those and put them up on YouTube. So I will send that out to the group after the meeting as well, so that those of you who can't attend the task force meeting will be able to watch the presentation from Intrado. And we'll go from there. Matt will let you know when our next meeting is. Anybody have anything else for the good of the group before we disband? Or I should say adjourn?
I'd just say thanks to everybody for attending and taking part in the discussion. We definitely need multiple perspectives on this. I, for one, my original background is I'm a data propeller head, and sometimes I get stuck in the weeds on things. So we'll see how that goes. May need somebody with a higher view to pull me back out of things.
We'll do that. We'll have a helicopter ready to pull you out of the weeds.
There you go.
All right. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be meeting again. I think my original goal was to see about meeting once a month, but we'll leave it to Matt to schedule those, because some months we may not have anything to discuss, and some months we may have more than one meeting's worth to discuss. So stay tuned, and we will let you know. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.